This Zoom session is being brought to you by the Fractal Recursive 12 Star. Okay. Today, well, we were covering 1.5, but it's really an extra credit section with with no assigned problems really, except extra credit. And so I'll move on afterwards to 1.6. Here we just have some graphs of specific functions, and this will just take a few minutes to review. A constant function's graph is a form of a horizontal line at height y equals the constant. Y equals x, called the identity function because it really gives back what's put in. Its graph is that of a diagonal like this. Y equals x squared is a U-shaped graph called a parabola, such as this. It's the shape of the cables on suspension bridges and also of the path of objects in free fall, although in that case the U is upside down. Y equals square root of x looks like the upper half of a parabola on its side. If you look at the bottom half, that would make a parabola like this on its side. The y equals x cubed has an n-shaped graph like this. Y equals cube root of x has an S-shaped graph, which is formed by taking this graph and flipping it through the diagonal. That's a special case of what are called inverse functions, which we'll be covering later. 1 over x has a graph called a hyperbola, which goes off to infinity as x approaches 0 and goes off to 0 as y approaches infinity. This hyperbola is, if you turn it 45 degrees, it's the shape that a lamp makes on the wall because as cast by its lampshade. Y equals absolute value of x has a V-shaped graph such as this. There are piecewise defined functions, which are defined a piece at a time. So for example, here's a function y equals 1 if x is less than 1. That's represented by this part of the graph. Y equals x for x between -1 and 1. That's represented by this part of the graph. And y equals, I'm sorry, y equals 1 is this part of the graph, my apologies. Y equals 2 if x is less than -1. That's represented by this part of the graph. Here, it makes a sudden jump, and that's called a discontinuity. And that's why mathematicians don't really like piecewise defined graphs, because they're kind of inelegant in that respect. All right, well, cat, get out of here. Just a second. My cat is being annoying. And of course, the only way to get him out reliably is to throw a treat out the door. So I've just rewarded him for knocking a book onto the floor. He has me well trained, but I digress. Okay. Oh, listen, they definitely have us have me trained. That's just how cats work.
That's usually how cats do it. They train their people.
There was a Star Trek Next Trek show where Geordi LaForge pointed that out to Data. Yes, you well trained. So I used to own dogs. Now I'm owned by cats. Human beings just don't deserve dogs, but we definitely deserve cats.
Right? Yeah. How the tables have turned.